This was a wham week. Hi. Toqger 27, Gaim 44, Garo 22. Now, I'm probably not going to run as long, because normally I record these about immediately after I watch them, but due to extenuating circumstances, I'm about an hour after I watched that I'm recording this. It's allowed me to more collect my thoughts, but I've forgotten half of what I want to talk about. So, if I miss stuff more than normal, there you go. Toqger. Righto! Yeah, this is a him-focused episode because it introduces the power-up of the series Hyper Dud, and I'll get to that. But it starts off with Wright being really, really angry for some reason, and that reason is he's sick. Okay, I can understand being angry about being sick, but you do not show that frustration without letting other people know. Otherwise, it's just a big misdirect, and it's pointless. In fact, because of this anger, the rest of the Toqger are kind of feeling jilted and don't want to approach him, when knowing someone's sick before you go into battle would be a good thing to know. I mean, it's probably one of the problems. He's terrible at communication, putting everything on himself when it's a fucking team. I mean, yeah, we've had Sentai and Rangers that have kind of more focus on the red because that's the personality of the red. In fact, one big example is Daigo from Kyoryuger, in that he took over Kyoryuger through force of personality. Now, Raito does not have that force of personality. He does for the characters, but not for the show. And see, this is what I meant about missing things because of how much time I had to delay actually recording this damn thing. Because he's all angry and forceful and spiritual, and he collapses in the middle of first battle. Now, because it's a shadow town, they're limited in transformation due to all the overwhelming darkness of the place. So instead of letting people know that he's sick and he needs to finish this faster than normal, he just collapses because the rest of Toqger are putzing and because he's not communicating. See where I'm going with this? So he collapses, and the rest of the Toqger have to get him and run, including Akira, who came into the Shadow Town because. And so then they get lost because the Shadow Town's properties were built to despair over people not being able to navigate, because the spell of the place screwed with a perceptual awareness, abilities to travel in a straight line due to how you perceive the world. Instead of traveling a straight line, you might end up walking in circles because you're disoriented. And especially with city landmarks, those were no longer valid. So likewise, the Toqger gets split up. Now, Akira was smart here because he used his harmonica to change the perception that they used to travel with, hearing. So they traveled towards the sound of the harmonica to all meet up again. Now, while this is happening, Wright recovers enough to no longer have his sickness mean anything. It's phrased in the show that his anger was making him sick. Anger does not work that way. Anger does not work that way. It's all leading up to the failure to use the Hyper Resha. The Hyper Resha is the hyper transformation trinket for the super form of the red of the season, and I hate the form. But of course it's given to Wright because he supposedly has the strongest imagination. Because, you know, he's the most childish, because this show constantly misconceives childishness leading to imagination. When everybody has imagination, Everybody has imagination. Everybody has imagination. In adults, it's seen as the creativity to create things, like scripted stories, creative reviews, making things out of other things. Yeah, I'm most of the painting stage with this. It manifests in so many different ways that the only way to actually be unimaginative is to do a ripoff of something blatantly, and, well, it's pretty much just I could just use the standby insult of Bandai of America. Actually, a bit of Bandai of Japan due to, again, unimaginative designs for everything in this show. So, I'm just rehashing the old argument at this, but yeah, Wright realizes that anger is bad because it makes you sick. No, it doesn't. And has to find a different mental image to use instead of something stronger than the creativity, the imagination to imagine winning, but the imagination to find his home, and that's apparently stronger motivation. No, not really, no. At least not from pretty much every other series, because, you're already fighting for that kind of thing. In fact, that's what's helped create some of their other stuff. But it's apparently throwback to the whole amnesia thing, him getting images of his parents back, which doesn't really work because they already got that. So yeah, he goes back to the battleground. He transforms into Hyper Dud Ichigo, which is apparently immune to that time limit they have for transformation in the Shadow Towns, because he overwhelms them with sparkly golden light stuff. Hyper Dud Ichigo looks terrible. It's just a train coming on, hitting the shoulder, coming over, fusing with the shoulders, with the train rails over the chest. Not the train rails, the wheel gear. That large bar that turns all the wheels on the front of the steam engine at once. And I'm making a really weird motion here, and yeah, it has to be okay, Kai Shine is a competitor, because that's just Kai Ozu with Magi Shine's armor and a scarf, but you get where I'm going with this. It's the worst official super form look. And I'm including all the Battleizers. The Battleizers look better than this, because it's just high chest armor and ridiculous shoulder pads. They're not even well detailed either. It's just extremely basic. I mean, it'd make more sense if this was something they could transfer from one to another, but no, it's going to be Wright exclusive. And of course, he just punches. He just punches. That's it. That's the special ability of Hyper Dud Ichigo. It would make sense if all the imagination powers were draining away the imagination to power themselves, because everything here is just ridiculously basic. I mean, yeah, that would make sense in mythology if it's draining them so they can only do it with the most basic things. Except it'd be contrary to some of the stuff we've seen before. But, there is no consistency in this show. Shadowline guys got a new something or other. Martian. I really can't pronounce the name. I'm blank. She apparently raised Zet, which is either guardian, mother, caretaker. It's something, but apparently she's trying to break him of this "the light is good, we will consume the light" thing by showing him how weak he is. And this is compounded when Zet gets his ass beaten by Hyper Dud Ichigo. you're not exactly weak when it takes the super form of the strongest of them to win. I mean, I guess it's showing how weak the light is, but it's not a weakness, it's a fascination that he has, I guess. But yeah, he goes kind of berserk, changes into his monster form. Wright calls the Daikaiden cannon, which is the team's next combiner cannon thing, which appears out of nowhere, sort of. And he blows up the Shadow Kaijin that's controlling the town, and combined mechs blow up monster, and now everybody's sick. Yay. Gaim 44. This looped back on itself, sort of, because it starts out with... Okay, it doesn't exactly start out, but the first thing of relevance is... The first episode opened with a potential future, where Gaim and Baron were leading two armies of Invest against each other, with Zangetsu and Ryugen watching with a third army. And then the not Mai, which we now know as Overlord Mai, aka the Woman of the Beginning, awakening and watching over at them. We now know this is a parallel reality, because for some reason, Gen Urobuchi has to facilitate the understanding for stupid people in this case. So, Mai's trapped there, though she can still transmit herself to the dreams of others, and she does it to Kota to tell her how much she screwed up, and now she's alone, except Kota shares back with her the words she told him when he told her about what happened to Yuya. And that was a very good moment. That shows that she's pretty much chosen him in this war of Michi, Kota, and Kaito over, I guess, her affections or who she loves or who she'll pick, because, well, we all know Michi's bag, but apparently Kaito has a thing for her too. While it's not been shown in the show, there's been this recent expanded universe thing about Kaito's backstory, in that Kaito's parents were very poor. What they did do for work got bought out by Yggdrasil and destroyed, and they had to put him up for adoption because they couldn't afford to feed him. And he stayed with that orphanage until he was of legal age, because he always believed they would come back for him. They never did, so he had to be strong. He had to be tough to hold in it, and eventually all that was left of him was that strength. And the only one of the things that encouraged him to keep moving forward was Mai's family, who were shrine keepers for the local city, and that ties back into that giant tree that Yggdrasil was using as the focal point for a crack. You know, the Helheim tree that they were using as that core point. Anyways, he was entranced by her dancing, so when the dance team started up, he joined one, he took one over, and they were the first ones to get the lock seeds. Yay. And, using it as a point of strength for him. But this is interesting in that it validates parts of Kaito's actions. Problem is, they weren't in the show. One of my critiques of Gaim is they didn't spend enough in the early days fleshing out the beat writers. They were just rushing from point to point to point to point, and just to get to all the Yggdrasil stuff. Another few episodes leeway would have been a good idea. As then, get a stable grounding for the characters. And then they wouldn't have had the space for that stupid Kaider crossover, and the Spring Break special, which screwed with things in the episode count. But yeah, Kaito, to segue into our next point, is now an overlord. He has decided to destroy the world and rule over the one that will result from that, because he needs to destroy the world to get this access point that Mai's trapped in to get the golden fruit from her, to save her. Except he's going to kill her. We've gone over this. Of course, Kota, when he wakes up, is not happy about that. But before that happens, Zack, Jonichi, and Oren confronts him and see him summoning Inves because he set them on them. Now, Oren senses this because he's a soldier. He can kind of foresee the mindsets of some of this stuff because he's experienced it in combat. People drunk on their own power, and yeah, they get the beat down. Zack actually switches sides to ally with Kaito because of words he said to him long ago, fight for the world you wish for, and so he joins Zack because, Zack joins Kaito because, well, he trusts that it'll be the world he wants, or not. And Oren and Jonichi get their drivers destroyed after battle. Now, it looks like it was just the Jonichi's lock seed that was destroyed, but that would be unlikely. Now, some fans have pointed out that the drivers the two have been using are actually the remodeled, enhanced ones that Yggdrasil gave them, because they're silver-braced and not the yellow-braced of the first run types. So they might actually have two backups. I think, actually, that Yggdrasil took those and replaced them with the ones they gave them, because they still had the faceplates, and if they were just the mass production, more powerful models, then they wouldn't have the faceplates. Or they took the faceplate recognizers off of them, because, Kota discovered they could do that, to lock them in, and they still don't have the spares. Now, this is just my explanation. They might actually still have them, and they might show up at some point later on. We don't know. But if we don't see him again, ever transform into riders, that's probably the best explanation. So yeah, Zack and Yoko and Kaito are Team Baron. Unfortunately, we got a little sexist with Yoko. I've been liking her character, and, she's a badass, because she's a badass. She is her own suit actor. She can fight down most of the rest of the people. In fact, she and Oren are pretty evenly matched before they armor up. I've been saying this for a while. She can kick everybody else's ass out of suit. Her entire motivation is she wants to give birth to the king of the next world. When she thought that was Ryoma, she followed Ryoma. Then she realized Kaito is a better chance because he's a more charismatic leader and actually seems to care about people as long as they are strong. Hey, she's strong. They might as well pair up. I was hoping there was something more to her than that. It's just, there's not, and it is kind of sexist. Granted, she's still a better character than a bunch of others I could name. In that she knows what she wants to do with her life, she knows her ambition, and she's going for it. That it has to revolve around a man is the problem. If she wants to see who will rule the world, see what they would make of it if, with her encouragement, see her as the maker of this person by guiding them, yeah, that would have been a bit more. But no, it's just find a guy, make sure he becomes the king. That's it. I didn't like that. So, the two Team Gaim people who've been opportunity of convenience to supply exposition to other people, they're the ones who helped Michi take Mai to Ryoma, and by proxy told Yoko and Kaito about what happened to Mai. they find Kota because they're looking for Kota and try and find the others. And that's convenient that they just happened to come across the area where Kota was gravely wounded. Unfortunately, I mean, they didn't even need to do that. They could have just... They didn't need to do that at all. They could have just had Kota wake up, find himself injured, but, the wound receding, because the wound was healing really fast, and then just stumble back to the garage that is Gaim's base, and then have Oren and Jonichi come in, like they did, and tell him about what Kaito was doing in building his Invest army, because he's opening cracks at will, and like Roshuo did. And yeah, we previously thought that was just Roshuo and Ryu that could do that, because Demushu apparently did not know at all about that power. Apparently all the overlords could do it, Demushu was just that stupid. Wouldn't surprise me. So, yeah, Kota goes to fight him. He has to go Kachidoki to beat down Baron Banana Arms, and then Kota goes up in his Invest form and beats him down, even in Kiwami, because, he's injured. He's reopening the wound, and Zack realizes what he's doing, and intervenes in the battle in the illusion of helping Kaito fight, and gets Kota to flee. Actually tells him, retreat for now. So, he could get healed, come back, because he's beaten 7 overlords on his own. Baron's not going to be able to beat that. So, the stage is set up for the end of the series, more or less. Speaking of setting the stage for the end of the series, then there's Makai no Hana. The priest is actually a knight, the one that set Eris free. This guy's name is Eiji. He lost his lover due to reasons that are not ever really explained, and freed Eris because apparently when the Makai flower blooms, it gives a wish. So he finds the last horror that Eris hides in, captures it with some Mado magic, somehow, I don't know, so that he can prepare Eris for her blooming, and also captures Mayuri for pretty much the same reason, because, there is no way to resurrect someone entirely, because even if you revive the body, there's no soul. So he actually needed Yuri in the possibility that her powers could capture and hold a human soul. Now, I think what the idea is, when she was dying, he did something that captured her soul, and to contain it properly, he put it in Mayuri. We just don't know at this point, which would make sense, because then the question is, how do you pull the soul out of the aether, or wherever souls go after they die in the Makai, in the Gara universe? Which is kind of my question, because he hasn't killed Mayuri. Now, if it's trapped in there with everything else, then what would happen when she dies? Or if he's using her for the capture points, then he's kind of screwing himself over, and there's no point for Eris. The complication with all this is Crow knows the guy. Crow was taught to be a Makai Knight by the guy. He was Eiji's star pupil. Of course, kind of means he has low expectations of everybody if Crow, who's gotten his ass handed to him he's had his ass handed to him by practically everything in the show, and just low standards, I guess. Because usually you seek to surpass the people that teach you stuff, I guess. But not so much this time. So it's pretty much just an exposition episode on why he's done all this, which, if he'd appear... This is kind of the same complaints I'm coming up with from the original Girl. Setting this stuff up by, introducing the characters beforehand and, giving them a bit more focus on the show would have really helped instead of spamming us with exposition at the end to justify all of this, or, fill in the mysteries. Not just have them be standalones, have there be a bit more of an arc to it, versus, okay, yeah, there's still character development for everybody in their interactions and actions, but you don't get why, as they're not giving us the backstory in an even manner. It's just dump it. Dump it, dump it, dump it. I still like Garo a lot, because it's still framed and done better than other series I can name. So yeah, there are like 3 episodes left. We're finally in the arc, well into the arc, part 2 of the arc, and getting rid of Eris. And of course, in typical Garo fashion, they're going to fail to stop the awakening, but they're going to kill it afterwards, because I'm just guessing that right now. So the question becomes, will his plan work, and will he die to actually get his lover back? Probably. Reason I'm doing this a day late is TV Nihon finally released Kamen Rider Tyson. It's bad. Really bad. I'll have that up hopefully at the end of the month, the entire scripted thing, because I do the Tyson films as soon as I can after they're released and subbed by a good group. I would have done this a lot earlier had Overtime chosen to subtitle it, because I trust Overtime subs, even though I'm not a big fan of liberal fan subs. And they didn't do it this year. They left it to Imagination Station, and Imagination Station did those terrible, terrible subs of Kyoryuger versus Go Busters, or Go Busters versus Kyoryuger, the one with the multi-dino team-up that I complained about months ago in these vlogs. So yeah, I'm working on that. And yes, there are... I know a lot of people have said that's a good movie. It's not. I will explain in the review proper. Until then, I'm looking forward to next week's just badass brawls with Gaim. Oh, and we get to pound on Raito next week, because the Shadow Line, oh boy, that's going to be fun. So, see you next week.